I think I don't know how about you. Are you getting back to play in person finally? Like I know many players from other areas, from other countries, like in US. Fortunately, we are slowly getting back to play in person, real chess. I think like kind of like I was not a big fan of online chess. It was a disaster. I think it was a cheating pandemic. How do you feel, guys? How do you feel about this? I'm just thinking like what is happening in other countries. I know some tournaments resumed in Europe. What about other parts of the world? How are you doing? Are you getting back to some tournaments in person, or is still mostly online? Oh well, in US. Good. So yeah, in US, like I'm like quite happy to see finally people play in person, like my students play in person, and we are not dealing with this very suspicious like online games. Like finally, I think it's a good sign. Everyone looking forward to it. Like hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, like soon we'll come back in full. Okay, guys. So let's get to the topic. To be honest, it's not an easy topic for me. Not an easy topic. I'm like the guy of D4, and I was like instructed not to play D4, right? Like as much as possible not to play D4. So we are talking about Reti. It's kind of like a little bit new opening for me in some sense, right? Of course, I maybe like studied for black how to react for black. Like I used to play obviously fianchetto systems, like something like Grunfeld Spirit. I used to play some Slav defense. So like, well, of course, I have some ideas what to do for black. With white, to be honest, I even I was like kind of like forced to take some lessons, even like, well, not lessons, but to have some discussion with my friend Michael Royce, who was a specialist in Reti. So at least he could explain some ideas. He shared some thoughts. It's interesting topic. So like, hopefully you can positively assess my homework now, because it's something that like literally I needed to work so much to compare with like other lectures where I already had the material, had experience here. Of course, guys, to be honest, like I almost never played in my life knight f3, maybe besides the idea that I was trying to avoid Grunfeld systems, like let's say to play anti-Grunfeld sometimes, like knight f3, c4, and so on. But it's interesting territory. So like I learned a lot throughout this week. So hopefully you like my material. Okay, let's first start. Let's first start with the line, and also my focus. So from what I understand, we start basically with this position, and my first file would be we will be talking about fianchetto system G6. How when I was talking with Michael Royce, my good friend, my close chess friend. Now we're in different countries. I used to live very close to him, but now I'm in the US and he's in Israel, so it's not the same. But we are constantly in touch. So he told me, well, G6, well, it's a problematic move. It's a problematic move for me. Now, well, he usually is trying to transpose to D4, but as I understand, we need to find something like for Reti players that we do not transpose to D4, right? D4, it's just another topic. It's another territory. It's basically D4 fianchetto, right? So that's the system. Now, what I tried to make work in here, and I noticed from the players who constantly play this kind of like Reti recently, it's the move C4. So this is what I was trying to make working, right? Like C4, and that would be like more in the spirit of Reti, right? Like I felt like of course you can always play D4, and I'm pretty sure those of you who play Reti, sometimes you transpose to D4, but let's talk about maybe some kind of like system when you try not to play d4 as much as possible. So that was my strategy, right? Now, guys, please be engaged. If you are talking about some ideas, just let me know. Let me know maybe about some moves that I'm missing, maybe some questions. And if I see that the question is relevant and important, I'll try to address, right? So why c4? Because it seems to me that if we, let's say, continue, of course there is d4, right? But we are talking not to play d4. So if we continue like this type of position, right? Like this type of style, so the black will play e5, and I feel it will be very comfortable for black. I feel it will be very comfortable for black. Again, like anytime d4 is possible. Now after d3, we basically get Pirc reversed, right? Pirc reversed, but it's actually pretty good setup. And so the question, does black have to be ready for Grunfeld to play g6 there? Yeah, well, I think yes. If black plays g6, you have to be ready for d4, right? You have to be ready for d4. So it will be, yeah, we can call it Grunfeld indeed. D4, bishop g7, right? So it's kind of like Grunfeld system, right? And it's to be honest, also like very solid line, right? Very solid line. You know, guys, probably that I'm kind of like Grunfeld expert. And then there is like, so we get like regular Grunfeld g3, where black has a choice to take on c4 or to play c6. In my recent years, I always preferred c6, rock solid, very hard to break, very hard to break. But yeah, that's the position. That's the position. And the problem also, like even with this move order, if you, I don't know if someone is familiar with my work with my Grandmaster Repertoire, I had the idea Queen a4, but this idea Queen a4 was played not in this position, but one move before. So we are kind of like, we cannot even get this. And the idea was without knight on g8, move Queen a4. And the point was that I take on d5, right? So here doesn't make sense because he just plays castle, and after cd5, he can take cd5. So even this idea is not working, right? So anyway, so just hopefully I answered this question. Now back to this position. I think it seems like black is doing very well here. I mean, again, like some people probably will be okay to play this. It's like, after all, it's tempo down, right? It's like reverse tempo down, but it's a good setup for black, right? It's after, let's say here in this position, I noticed some strong players prefer knight e7, some knight c6, probably maybe like taking into account like that, how to react after a4. So now, for instance, in this position after knight c6, if white plays e4, so there is nothing wrong with knight e7, of course, but I noticed there was at least one game of Anish Giri, maybe even more so. The endgame also looks pretty harmless, in my opinion, like c3 probably covering d4 and knight f6 position like this, even actually quite interesting for black, right? Queenside castle, there are pins. I even found some interesting improvement. This is the game Anish Giri against Gelfand. So here he moved the bishop away, but for instance, there is this idea which is very interesting. This pin quite annoying, I would say. So I don't know why he didn't play that. Well, it's also about, of course, it's not that white is losing material, but whenever you move the knight, I'll trade dark square bishops, and then this light square bishop restricted by the pawn a4, it's not like amazing bishop, so like doesn't feel like white even fighting for any advantage. And of course, in this position, we have, of course, normal move knight a7. Even black can be like postponing knight c6, maybe like at some point even playing c5. So no problems here. Well, there is some c4 stuff, but again, like we have here, this position doesn't seem like there are too many chances here for advantage for white in this position. Therefore, I decided that like for Reti players, if to play something and play something independent, right? Again, guys, that's the point. Of course, you can do d3, you can play just, Pirc reverse, you can play d4, switch to g3 systems. but something independent. I think like c4 kind of like that's the answer. That's the answer to play c4. Now after c4 we probably have three main moves in this position, and there are dc4, d4, and c6. Let's talk first about c6. The move that I would be probably thinking about as a Grunfeld player, and remember I mentioned that I always play c6, d5, so now I felt like how once again not to get d4 system. And I found this move. And I found this interesting move played by Kramnik and many other strong players. Now what's the idea? It's the idea actually similar that I mentioned after d4. So we want to take cd5 and make sure that black is not recapturing with the pawn. This is the only justification, right? That can be. Otherwise, like queen a4, it's just breaking the rules, moving the queen too early, and no point, right? Now, what's the problem with other moves? I checked, for instance, I noticed there is like some players play b3, but yeah, I mean, well, we have to do d4, so that doesn't really work with the g6. This might be the idea when knight on f6 already. So here d4, and again we get like just regular Grunfeld position. Now, if white plays in this position bishop g2, so there is this possibility like we get this, right? We get this again. I couldn't find really something interesting without d4 here. d3 looks passive. If we try to put b3, bishop b2, the problem with this move order is like knight a4 can come, right? And after d4, it's once again d4 system, which is like, and knight a4 is perfectly normal move for black. Knight a4 is just one of the top choices, and we get like castle, probably bishop b2, and it's just like theoretical line with the d4, c4, just normal stuff, right? So again, guys, I hope you understand. My goal was to avoid all this, right? To avoid playing c4, and this is where I thought interesting idea in this position would be queen a4. So we want to take on d5, force queen d5 would be definitely an achievement, and I checked like a few options, 4 options for black, for top choices. Now, what do we have here? We have e6. It's quite interesting move. So the idea to recapture on d5, if white captures, to recapture with the e-pawn. But then in this case, the bishop on c8 blocked. So that's a little bit different position. And I think, let's say bishop g2, bishop g7, d4, knight e7, castle. We have this type of play where, I mean, after all, there is a point to have knight on e7, but it's not the same when knight on f6. I'm not a big fan. It's still, of course, very solid. Also, important control over e4 square with the knight on f6 is missing here, right? So here I just noticed there is a game, very fresh game by Mihail Marin. I think he's also in this camp, right? So he played against Alexei Shirov, and there was this position. So I think, I don't remember what exactly he played, but knight c3 seems like a good move here. And white is about to play e4, and it looks like white is doing pretty well. I think actually knight f5 maybe was a little bit premature in this position. So this is very playable. After all, it's not that somebody told us never play d4. At some point we can play d4, of course, just not to transpose to like regular lines with d4. That was the point. So we talked about e6, right? So let's talk about move knight f6. What is happening knight f6? This is actually the main idea, this queen a4 jump. After we take cd5, black is forced to recapture with a piece, right? So this is the achievement. And then we get this position. And if I'm not mistaken, I probably have this position in my book, and it feels like white is a little bit better. After all, knight d5. Usually when you play this knight d5, you want to have, for black, like as a Grunfeld player, you want to have c6 square available for the knight in order to put pressure against the center. So we'll play castle and just normal play, and it feels like white is a little bit better here. So, but this is theoretical. This is from d4, but it's a good it's a good transposition. It's a good transposition to pretty favorable line. Okay, so that's another point here. Now, what else we have? Of course, DC4. DC4 is possible, and now in this position we have it's the same, almost the same story, right? But I found like the difference here. Now, after bishop g7, there is a feeling that d4 should be played, because once again, bishop g2, I'm not too excited about this stuff. Bishop g2, e5, black gets control, and it's actually very convenient. e5 followed by knight e7, like this kind of setup. It looks very good. It looks very good for black. In my opinion, bishop e6 will come with the tempo. Of course, playable, but I felt like not so many chances here for advantage. Black is doing pretty well. Therefore, again, I felt like, okay, that's the moment where it's good idea to play d4 and stop e5. And again, we can do this. Now, in this position, knight f6, so that would be very theoretical. Guys, if you have any questions right now, please post here in the chat. I noticed some people posted on Q&A. I mean, we will do 5 minutes of Q&A, but right now, if you have any question, and you want me to answer, if you want Q&A sessions like for at the end, it's fine, right? But if you want me to see something and answer the question, please post in the chat, right? And what do we have here? Once again, we have this position, but again, I think it's very theoretical. It's very theoretical. It's covered in my book, but it's favorable. It's favorable. I don't think it's one of those lines where black really challenging white in the center. It feels like slightly better for white, this type of position. But to be honest, it's just regular position. Now, and okay, interesting question. A6 after queen a4. There is actually this idea after in regular Grunfeld. In regular Grunfeld with knight f6, it's actually one of the interesting moves. But here it doesn't work. It doesn't work because cd5, I noticed after b5 there is queen d4. No, b5 I have a tempo, right? So that's kind of like favorable that there is no knight f6, bishop g7. So we win material, right? If I see correctly. So that looks fine, right? That looks fine. Now, why not knight f6? Why not knight f6? Because, well, you already committed for e6. So it kind of makes sense to have knight on e7. Well, at least I noticed this is how black plays. To have knight on e7, at least to keep bishop g7 open. At least to keep bishop g7 open. So that's just, I mean, e6, knight f6, pretty passive setup because of bishop on c8. So, guys, I was just asked this question, and maybe not everyone understands what I'm talking about. So the question was, why not to play in this position instead of knight e7 to play knight f6? But then knight f6 e6 it's a little bit passive, right? I would say like this. We can have like knight c3, bishop f4, rook d1, good development here. So that's my answer. But I'm pretty sure there are games. But from my perspective, if to play e6, at least put the knight on e7. That's the setup that makes sense. Now, on the other hand, I notice here, if we are talking like what can be the difference from let's say regular lines and what is the way to avoid like knight f6 regular stuff, there is bishop e6. There is bishop e6 played by one of my favorite players, or maybe favorite players, Dean Clearen. He's always like very, very good in the openings, like very deep preparation. So he probably noticed there is a difference, and there is opportunity to put the bishop on d5. Now we probably so d4 is hanging. Actually, we cannot play bishop g2, right? We play bishop g2, he can take. So we kind of like forced to play this move, and then knight f6. So it's pretty interesting idea. Queen c2 was played, maybe bishop g2. Queen c2, and he actually, there was a game where he played queen a5, very interesting. What's the idea of this move? The idea that he delivered c5. Again, I would like to mention that there is probably no time to do something simple like, castle will get e4, right? That would be great for white. there will be e4, but queen a5. So there is no e4 because of the pin, right? E4, we just take on e4, and bishop g2 c5. Very, very interesting idea, and there was like some game like that. I think eventually Yu Yangui against Dean Kluren, so they're very high level game, and I thought in this position, I think after all white got some advantage, but I felt like knight c6 and check this position. It seems like it's complicated, but black. So when we take on c5, this pawn will be regained at some point, right? And so this is something to check. And maybe if someone is interested, that might be the idea for black. So you need like a little bit further to analyze this, like to understand the ideas. Okay, so now let's get back to queen a4 and finally to take probably on the main move here, which is d4. d4. I felt like it's the main idea. It kind of like makes a perfect sense. Black takes advantage that there is no d4, and well, it's more or less could be bishop g2 move forward, but I think this is logical for both sides. Castle knight a7. So this position, and white probably will play. I don't know whether there is any significant difference. We start before, but knight d2, castle before, and it looks very interesting from white perspective. I think like white something like knight d7, rook b1. I think like white gained some space on the king side. There are ideas. Not clear what exactly right now, right? Like b5, c5. I don't think it's working, but meanwhile, I think white can play maybe first bishop a3 and see what black is doing exactly with these knights, d7, e7, right? Not so easy actually. A little bit crampy position in my opinion. So that's very interesting. I actually really like white setup in this position. So that's about queen a4, and we talked about c6 move. Now, so that was c6. Of course, d4 very challenging. Always feel like you know, if there is a chance to play d4 for black and gain so much space, like why not to do this? Why not to do this? Look, I'm really a big fan of playing all Benoni pawn structure. I feel like get pawn on d5, I will be always like having chances for advantage to compare with the lines where like black pawn on d5, right? So I'm now, guys, what do you think, like from your experience, maybe from your perspective, what do you think white setup should be here? What is the move to play here? What do you think, guys? Correct, Marco. Yeah, okay, guys, I see like you worked very well for the previous days. Yeah, b4 has to be played. B4 has to be played before black plays c5 or black plays knight c6. We need this move to fight for advantage, right? Because otherwise, I don't think there is anything, right? Again, it's reverse Benoni in some kind, but at least here we kind of like, at least we can get b4 move that black usually struggling to get unless it's Benko, right? It's a pawn sacrifice. So here there is opportunity to play b4, of course. Bishop g7, right? So here bishop b2 probably would transpose d3. Now, yeah, so this has been quite popular recently. This line. It's always for me when I see all these recent games like 2020, end of 2019, 2021. I'm like, I always like, well, is it like really serious openings or just people play online? And you know, guys, if you see all these like online databases, it's of course it's a lot of like rapid chess, a lot of like blitz. They even publish now title Tuesday, so maybe it's like 3 minutes games, but seems like there is it's trendy. People play this now. Well, seems like e5 should be the main setup in this position. Now, if not e5, there have been some other ideas. Like I wanted to mention, surprisingly, some people play c5 here. Well, not very popular, not in this position, c5. Then, of course, like we take, and what can I say? We probably have some kind of like good Benko, right? Good Benko. It's not exactly Benko. We have pawn on a2, but I just wanted to show one idea. It's actually from pretty old game, knight a6, very logical. So that's kind of like the plan to take on c5. But then in the game, white missed very strong c6. c6, bc6, bishop g2, and you can see that it's actually quite a clear advantage with definite problem for black that knight will be misplaced on a6 now. And if you go to c5, it will run into bishop a3, right? And white has all these ideas to play bishop a3 eventually and queen to a4, right? And knight bd2. So it's a very nice, easy play, right? So c5 probably not working here. Now, knight h6. Guys, that's quite common, I think. Like, you know, people just want like white to block the bishop. Let's develop like this. So some people play this, but I don't think it's anything interesting here. Like knight on f5, yes, it's maybe stops e3 because, well, in some positions we want e3, similar to Benoni, right? But if we just like go castle, so we kind of like, we don't need e3, we just play normal development, knight bd2. So I found there was some game. Eventually, black played a5 in this game. b5, gaining space, definitely, I think it's a no-brainer solution. White to take on a5, right, and allow like some play over a file. b5, great, gaining space, like issue with this knight on b8, like very unpleasant. And bishop c8 together, like how to develop this. Rook e8, bishop a3. So like just to give you like a couple of moves here, knight e4. So that's the price of having knight on a5. It looks good. But on the other hand, knight on e4 now stable. There is no f5, at least in short term. Knight d7, rook b1. Yeah, very nice position. Very nice position for white. Knight f6, queen f6, knight d2. And again, white pieces well coordinated. Black has problems, like how to solve the problem of the bishop on c8, right? So it's definitely something that black would be very happy to play. So we talked about knight h6. Was very interesting idea actually. Somebody played. It's probably like a few games actually where b6 was played. How about we solve the problem of light square bishop right now before bishop g2 played? That's the only moment where it's possible, right? When we have bishop on g2, there is a tactics already on this diagonal, right? So now it's a time. So kind of makes sense. Bishop b7, castle, e5. Yeah, so it seems like it's enough time. It's enough time to develop. Here we have a4 on knight b2. I'm trying to remember. So so actually, yeah. Now I remember this. Like a4 is the best move. Now what happened? Knight d2. I actually found a very old game from 1985 by players Korchnoi against Timan, and the game went like this. It was kind of logical play for white, right? But I think it's too slow. And now, what a huge difference with the previous line, bishop on b7, right? And a5 feels like there is some play. I guess like a6 now, there is some threat, like a6 probably to get the bishop, right? Because there are no squares. So he played rook b8, Timan, and ab6, rook a7. But I checked, even though white won in this game, after queen c8, there is nothing for white here. So this is how like black can develop, and white should play faster. Like it was too slow, just literally one move, knight d2, a little bit slow. And then we have here game of, I think one of the players was Grandelius. I don't remember if it was like the final game he played. So knight e7, a5 right now, immediately, right? So those are the plans. Castle, and now there are like different moves here. I wasn't sure, but it's definitely very rich position for white with a lot of ideas. And this is what we are looking for, even if it's like objectively not like advantage or something, but I think it's quite promising here, to be honest. The game that I mentioned played by Grandelius, he played b5. Grandelius against Ukrainian Grandmaster Koroba, very strong. Here it was surprising to me, because I thought like black played a6 and seems like he has to play this because we are threatening a6 in this position, right? a6, take, and now he took on a6, which is very tempting. I thought maybe, well, at least it was a computer recommendation to trade the bishops. I don't think it's dangerous for us. Doesn't feel like our king is very vulnerable. But at least right now, there is some tension of the A file, which is annoying, right? Now, so that's probably could be an improvement because in the game, this position, even though like B6 is problematic, right? It appears to be not so bad for black. Black can consolidate like this. Seems like black is doing pretty well. Rook FB1, and there was some blunder here in this position from Ukrainian player, but some solid move, bishop C6, and it feels like, yeah, well, B6 is weak, but it's very hard to get to the pawn, and Rook FB8 is coming, and black is fine, right? Now we have also, so that was one aggressive, it was very aggressive, like it was B5 right away. We have also, in general, I felt like, well, we are not forced to rush here. We can play knight D2, right? We can play queen B3 in this position. Yeah, we have a lot of ideas, and I guess this is what you are looking for. So that's the move B6. So overall, you can see what if black plays A5 on A4. Okay, that's an interesting question. A4, now A5, stopping A5. That's a good question. That's a good question. Like one idea I see that we can maybe start playing like very quickly here, like by capturing. So what will happen with B5? Yeah, that's a very logical question, right? But maybe, guys, what do you think? Let me really quickly. I want to check this because like maybe people play this. Maybe people play it. It's like makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense in this position. Well, it's very few games, unfortunately. Yeah, nobody played A5. It's only 3 games overall, and only one fresh game. Only one fresh game. Yeah. Good question. Good question. Yeah. So I'm not sure, right? It seems like we need to play B5, to be honest. Like, I don't know. So another idea is, of course, to play BA5, Rook A5, right? And now work for A5 break. Let's say knight D2, quick knight B3, right? Like something like this. Quick knight B3. Yes, Joshua. So that's what I'm trying to deliver here. Rook A8 and like, I don't know, immediately A5, or we can like start bishop D2, something like that, right? It looks like a little bit slow, right? Or maybe A5 so we can put bishop on A3, right? So that's one plan. That's one plan. And another plan, I noticed, like I was even surprised myself, like they quite often like they quite often play B5, and it seems like very close, but there are like ideas. There are ideas eventually. Like for instance, we get this, and then we start working for E3. So for instance, right, like knight E7, and how we work for E3, because now E3 he might take and followed by E4, might be some issues, right? I noticed that computer likes to play this kind of ideas. Let's say Rook A2, it's very thematic actually, and E3. So I probably would say this. That's the idea. And what's the problem? The problem, like knight on B8, right? It's like not on C6. That's why white is fighting for advantage. Actually, computer is very positive about this solution. So that's the play, right? Okay, guys, let's. But it was a good question, right? Let's go back all the way here. We check B6, and finally we have we checked everything. So E5 is the main move in this position. So we play bishop G2, knight E7, castle. Now castle normally. So for instance, here I have A5, and again, well, here BA5 we don't take because it's a long way to get something on the A file, and A pawn will be problematic, right? Like A pawn doesn't look. There is actually, once again, the game of this Ukrainian grandmaster, and he played against Pragnananda, right? A genius, a prodigy from India. And well, it was not a good solution. So for instance, I just want to show you how white ran into trouble like really quick here positionally. And that's a huge difference, like you have b6 or not, right? So it was like this, b6, bishop a3, and yeah, it was an improvement. He didn't play c5, but c5, and seems like strategically very problematic. Just a4 is weak, right? Like what white is doing here. So that's not a good decision, right? Not to play ba5, but rather to play b5 in this position. So after b5, interesting, there is castle, and I noticed like actually even more games, if I remember correctly, white players play c5, anticipating some problems after castle. So what happens after castle? After castle, we play bishop a3, so there is no c5, right? There is no c5, rook e8, then we play knight d2, so just very natural, you know, nothing amazing, right? Knight d7, there are several games here. Seems like white can play knight e4 in this position. What's the idea? I think like f5 probably should be dangerous still without h6. It should be dangerous. It's probably tactically not working. And let's say rook b8, queen b3. This is what I thought. Looks very nice for white, to be honest. But this knight d7 e7 setup like does not impress, right? It's like very passive, not clear what to do with these knights. And yeah, white is just like doing great right here in this position. Therefore, I noticed here instead of castle, c5 played a lot. C5 played a lot, and then we have here different approaches. Surprisingly, I thought it should be bc6, right? But surprisingly not. It's just one of the moves, and like a4 is very popular. A4 is very popular. Now, what happens after bc6? So what is happening here? Black recaptures with this knight. Knight a3, so we can take advantage. We can take advantage of b5 square, but it's not a big deal. So, and something like that, and it seems like not bad for black. So eventually knight will come to c5, bishop a3, there is knight b4, right? So it seems like black somehow solidifies on the queen side, and not so clear what to do. And of course, like black has space advantage in the center. So I thought it's probably not the best idea. Now, I thought about bishop a3, very, very strange move, right? But very specific idea here. Why bishop a3? It's a novelty, to quickly go for e3. So not waste time for a4, right? So that I thought like it's interesting that no games. Knight d7 has to be played, right? I mean, there is obviously, guys, you understand there is no b6, right? There is no b6. We have all the tactics, knight d4, knight e5. Well, probably knight e5, right? Like knight d4, we're going to lose our rook on a5. So that would be not so good. But after knight d7, we go knight d2, castle, and e3. So this strategy seems interesting to me, right? Requires some work, but I feel like white can be better, because we now start opening up in the center, and bishop c8, pawn on b7, still a lot of time for black to somehow untangle, right? Now, mostly we see instead of a4, we see this move in this position, a4 castle. Okay, so this transpose to what? I'm trying to understand where is the transposition here, like interesting, a little bit confusing. I guess, okay, so this is transposition to, no, it's transpose to some other move further. I know, like, so that's the main line. It's transposing to what? It's transposing to the line where white plays castle, and now we do a4. So this is where we get this, right? So we will get to this. Now, what about knight d2? Knight d2, interestingly, well, there is knight d7, of course, but a5, again, b5, and yeah, knight d7 looks good, c5, once again. So what is this position? Is it like, if we play bishop a3 here, so that's the same position we talked about, right? So that's just transpose, right? That's just transpose, guys. So we already talked about this position. So this is knight d2. And now it's one idea for white. Now a4 more natural, to be honest, right? A4 is more natural, and here, like, again, A5 is top choice. Why black is trying to do something? Because white has a lot of ideas here on the queen side. If black is not reacting, we can do A5, bishop A3, B5. It seems like, okay, B5 interesting. I thought bishop A3 is interesting, but white usually, I noticed like A5, kind of like gaining space, something like that. That's usually the plan. Definitely promising for white. Now, I'm not sure how much, but it's very, very playable and nice position. Nice position. So that seems like slow strategy. So this is like more challenging, right? A5, again, B5, as we know, B5, rook A5 doesn't make sense here, right? As we already discussed, A5, B5, and C5. Yeah. And C5 in this position. And once again, I think BC6, he will be able to get like both knights, C6, A6, eventually maybe get to B4, so we shouldn't take. Now, what do we have if we don't take, right? So E3, guys, E3 problematic because there is capture and E4, right? So still our rook on A2. Even though, like, I noticed computer suggests that it's absolutely fine and there is some initiative with this sacrifice, but you know, I don't want to recommend this. You can check. It just looks crazy to me, to be honest. like why to do this if we can start rook A2, right? Like, kind of like doesn't make sense, and not to have any risk. So we play rook A2. Yeah. So different moves. Rook A7, guys. Rook A7 will be the main move. Now, wanted to give you a few other examples here. Rook A7, what's the point? To solve, like, finally this issue on the diagonal, like to play B6 or something, right? Or develop the bishop. So that's the idea. Now, other moves, like knight F5, we know the square already, but okay, E3. So once we committed for B5, there is only one play. One plan, it's E3, right? There is only one plan. So here E3, D3, F3. So there was here high level game. Duda played against Ukrainian Grandmaster Kozubov. Very strange position here, but it seems like, at least according to computer, white is clearly better. It's very close. Not easy to understand why, but I would rather say that it's kind of like white pieces much better coordinated or mobilized. So there could be this and so on, right? And anytime knight d5. So just a better position, even though it looks very, very close. But I noticed my engine was very, very positive here. Very, very positive for white. So that was knight f5. Another move, knight d7. Again, e3, no brainer here. d3, probably the best bet for black. Now, after h6, I was shocked to discover that e4, right? I guess cd4 would run into important bishop a3, right? And so he cannot get knight to c5. And then we put like rook e1, and there is a lot of pressure. And knight d2, followed by knight e4, or followed by knight b3. This is bad. But shockingly, this position it appears to be very solid advantage for white. Just that we have e-file, still bishop on c8, still problem to play b6, clearly better for white. Meanwhile, rook e1 is coming, bishop f4 is coming, and all the stuff, right? Okay, this one, now d3, fe3 again. So guys, you probably noticed, like, we usually take. So, and again, if we just like knight c3, like this type of position seems like white will be always better. This is an interesting idea. There was a game here, e4, d4, played by, again, the same Ukrainian grandmaster with black, Korobov, but with white, there was a Russian grandmaster, Oparin. Guys, I don't know if somebody mentioned to you, but this is like, seems like nowadays, one of the biggest experts in Reti. Russian grandmaster Oparin. He's like over 2,600 for sure. Like how much, I don't remember exactly. 2018, 2615, probably nowadays like 2650, something like that. But he's like actually the guy who plays a lot this type of positions like Reti, and basically, to be honest, like I also build around his repertoire. So like d4. So what's the idea? Sacrifice pawn for compensation, but it doesn't feel like there is enough. Maybe I thought maybe the better idea like an improvement knight b6, but that's definitely required some work here, right? Still doesn't feel like there is full equality here. There is full equality. Now the game featured knight a5. The problem here that okay, you have e5 square, but like knight on e7 is not well placed, right? So white can do something like that, and seems like it's and then followed up with bishop b2 or knight c3. According to computer and my feeling, it's not enough compensation. It's not enough compensation here. Now back to the position that we discussed. So we talked about knight d7, rook a7, just to mention this move, e3, e3. Now again, d3 or b6, like different type of structures. Now d3, as usual, we take f3 again. Guys, bishop e3, b6, not recommended. We cannot get d4, right? And d3 is weak. We shouldn't play this unless it works tactically. What can be tactically that he's not playing b6, for instance, and he's struggling to protect c5. Now, after f3, b6, knight c3, again, even though it looks very close in my view, but somehow this position, according to computer, clearly better for white. I guess it's all about development and piece coordination. There is still knight b8, bishop c8, not playing, and we, of course, very quickly mobilize our pieces. Bishop e3, rook f2, anytime knight d5, right? So it's that's the play here. Now, shockingly, I discovered that this position, which I thought like, okay, looks decent for black, but even here, some serious problems. Control over the file, knight f5 was played, he went knight d2 in the game with advantage as well. I thought like, why not g4? G4 is very nice improvement, and like how to play for black here, right? I mean, we have very, very nice positional control here. Very nice positional control. Seems like black is almost developed, but it's just the coordination is not there. The coordination is not there. And you cannot say this about white pieces. So what happened once we got b5, it's actually very nice space advantage on the queen side, right? And this pawn on b5, it's really serious headache for black. Serious headache. Like there is no knight c6. You know, you need to solve the problems on the diagonal. So basically that's all. So another important line, another important line here, which probably I would say the best choice for black, in my opinion, at least right now, it's to play dc4. To play dc4, and the idea in this position to go knight a3. Not queen a4. I haven't checked why not queen a4, but I guess it's just knight c6 followed by bishop g7. Just very convenient position for black. I would say bishop g7, and then there is no d4, and then e5 can be played, and knight g7. So from what I understand, it's very comfortable, and nowadays it's overwhelmingly knight a3. In this position. Now getting this pawn with a knight, right? I don't know. I don't think there is any way for black to hold this pawn for a while, right? It's anyway. I think if bishop e6, it will be what it will be. Maybe knight g5 right away, right? But it's like really very few games. So it's even knight g5 is allowed, but bishop g2. Yeah, so like almost no games. It's always should be checked. Yeah, I unfortunately forgot to check this move, but yeah, one of the ideas, like from what I see, knight g5, right? Like how it can be played. Yeah. Okay, so now it's just almost everyone plays this move, and knight c4. Now knight c6. Now actually, yeah, knight c6. I actually kind of see white position very interesting. One problem that I couldn't solve, and this is the recent game of Levon Aronian, where he played bishop e6 in this position. And not only he solved easily problems in the game against Rapport, but he got even better position against Hungarian Grandmaster, right? There was Queen c2, and then it was just very, very convenient setup for black, even knight h6, even not knight f6, not blocking the bishop, additional control over e5 square, right? Probably black is better because white, also queen on c2, very strange. It's knight b4, knight d4. Okay, now what are the solutions, potential solutions? I thought one idea is to play maybe knight f5 in this position because it seems like, well, queen after all, knight d7, maybe take bishop g2, play this position, although it doesn't seem like there is anything, right? So that's a little bit problematic. And then there is check, maybe like would be my recommendation, but again, endgame, very strange, but at least playable. And for sure, white is not worse, I would say, right? But seems like black can be also quite happy about opening results, right? Then we play bishop g2, and we'll see, right? We'll see how black arrange pieces. So that's a very serious idea. This bishop e6, guys. It's actually, yeah, there are like a few games in this position, but some old games and only one like very fresh 2021 from very recent tournament. It's from June. So it's this tournament that has been played right now in Paris, I think. Yeah, so very, very fresh idea. Now, after knight c6, we get this type of position, guys, like d3. I realize like we need a little bit to speed up. I don't want only fully like g6 the whole lecture today, so we need to speed up a little bit. e5. Now another move, knight h6, always an idea. So there are like different plans here. So it's very tempting, by the way, that people play h4. It was the game Dinkley ran against Caruana. So it's like high level games here. There was this type of play, bishop e6, bishop d2, preventing bishop c4 trade, I guess. Knight g4, bishop g2. Hard a little bit to understand, right? Like what's going on here, but feels like this position is very playable, at least. Bishop d5 before, I felt like white got like interesting play here with slightly better position. Why we played h4? One might ask, right? Like giving up g4 square. On the other hand, black gave up g5 square. So it's always the question whether we need this or not. But this is what happened in the game. And as you know, Dinkley ran, extra attention to games of Dinkley ran. So knight h6 probably interesting, but there is nothing wrong with just playing normal play. Actually, maybe not bishop g2, but rather bishop d2, for instance. Castle, rook c1, knight f5, bishop g2, just normal moves, and to play this position. Knight on f5 seems okay, but also like what next, right? And we have this. We can actually say it's kind of like a reverse Sicilian, right? Like dragon stuff, but looks overall very playable. So that was about knight h6. Now e5, of course, the main setup. No questions about this. Now bishop d2 is very important to start with. Why? Because if you play bishop g2, which is so supernatural, there is this surprising idea. D4 forced, take, and knight f6. And there are games here, but it's very powerful compensation. Obviously, black is going to play bishop somewhere, queenside castle. I wouldn't recommend this position for white. I don't like it. So that's why I noticed that bishop d2, strong players, of course, aware of this idea. They play bishop d2. Now we have knight e7 as a main move. Now a5. A5 is also potentially preventing before already, right? So here actually, I thought it's an interesting idea once again to play h4. It's always like nowadays it's so popular, like everywhere h4, right? Everywhere h4 you can see in every line, especially anticipating that knight e7, then we can play h5, right? I think like it's either h6 or h5. So what I checked, h5, the game of Grandelius, grandmaster from Sweden, bishop c3, f6, bishop g2, knight e7. This interesting move. Why he's playing this move? I think transferring the knight on e4 to e4. So that's just the point. And it appears that this position, I feel like it's quite good for white. Why? Because what we achieve with playing h4, that in general, the main plan for black in this type of structures to get f5. And I cannot imagine black can play f5 anytime soon because it would run into knight g5. And we can also take advantage of this fact and obviously transfer the knight to e4. And it will be basically like kind of like untouchable because f5 again knight g5. Seems like black can never allow this. So that seems like very beneficial to insert. Now, if h6, which looks more reliable, right? Then there is this play. Now bishop c3 attacking the pawn. Now f6. So this is slightly awkward, right? Like h6, f6, g6, and but if black consolidates like knight e7, maybe it's not a big deal, right? Knight e7 and eventually f5 one day. But there is d4. There is d4, and there are some complications here. So that's kind of like the best play for both sides. This position, and black should play knight e7, and I think white is a little bit better, like white position, because strange structure on the queen side, on the king side for white, a little bit vulnerable, right? But it's for sure the best play. Now in the game was knight c3, an obvious mistake, played by Erik Hansen, Grandelius Hansen. Again, queen d8, king d8, knight c3, king on d8 is terrible, right? Like queen side castle, check, king e7, knight d5, bishop d5, rook d5, and then already probably white is winning some material, like a5. Probably there is no time to defend. And by the way, not to forget, we have already positional threat h5, forcing g5, and then what about f5 square, right? So it's a terrible position. I think it's, according to the computer, it's winning for white already. Yeah. So that there is this plan. So like a5, maybe a little bit premature. Knight e7. I saw once again some games with h4. It's actually like fresh game from Paris, whatever they play, Grand Prix. I already confused what is the tournament, but just which finished right now. Rapport against Wesley Saw, how the game continued, h6, here. Now, we don't have d4 idea, but still, this position looks interesting. Actually, very nice move, preventing bishop e6 and preventing castle, right? Because we keep eye on b7, queen b3, a5, a4, now bishop e6. So Wesley found how to play, how to deliver this. Why? Well, if queen b7, at least there is a repetition for black, right? Maybe it's somehow there is something even better, but rook b8, rook a8, at least repetition, right? So he's not capturing. But what an interesting idea. What I liked about h4, now suddenly bishop h3. He played bishop h3, and I felt like f5 should have been played with very double-edged play. Wesley took on h3, and it was a little bit better. I think overall, light squares, pretty good for white. It was draw, but interesting position for white in the opening, right? Now, bishop g2, normal. Now we have castle. We have castle here, so still, I don't think now. I don't think we can play. We could play before previously, right? But now in this position, it's actually, I realize it's very important to start with before, guys. To start with before. Now the reason for that, if we play castle, then a5. And I feel like black is doing pretty well. Now we don't have all this like tricky stuff when we play h4. And I think if bishop c3 played, f6, which is pretty normal in this position. And then knight d5, it seems like it will take us a long time to create something, like no b4, no d4, like d4, e4, obviously, right? So I don't like it. So that's the opportunity. We need to be precise, right? Like to play in this position instead of castle b4. So that's inspired by this Russian grandmaster that I mentioned, Oparin. Yeah, this is how he handled this position. Yeah, it's important. It's important. No, actually, like I probably confused him. Like he has only one game, but there are like some other strong players, Peter Svitler, Pavel Alyanov. Yeah, there are. I think you probably the very first question that you would like to ask, and nobody played this move, so I didn't put in my file. Nobody played this move, and the reason for that, of course, that after d4, bishop a1, queen a1, I would assume it's super powerful compensation, which is, in fact, we are not even material down much, right? Because we already have bishop pair, one pawn, but dark squares make this position super promising for white. I think it looks very bad. Nobody even tried this for white, right? Very, very powerful compensation. Now, let's go back here after before. So what black is playing, a6, one natural move, another move is bishop e6. Now, just a normal play here, we just go rook c1. Now, by the way, e4 is a threat, right? Or bishop c4, e4, not because we get exchange, but because knight on c4 vulnerable, so this is must. And then like a6, and we play castle in this position, and it's probably just transposed to a6. So we have, for this move forward, we more or less get the same position, rook c1. There are only two games here, but high-level games. One game is Svidler against Grandelius from 2020, and another game, Elyanov against Rothstein. Playable position, but I like white. White is slightly better here. I think like it's a good line to play. Now, it's a good line to play, but there is a question that I was unable to find like immediate answer, but the question is about bishop e6. So when you play, probably, especially that you play a few games, you know that someone can prepare. He's just pulling the database, highest rated Aronian, and he played bishop e6. So you have to check this line, right? Okay, so that's one line. Let's move forward with other ideas. So what I wanted to talk about also, knight f3, d5, g3, so g6 we covered. Now there is knight d7, and that was actually one of my homeworks. Like I was asked by the guys from Modern Chess, Boris, whatever you cover, but make sure you cover knight d7. It's like a latest trend. Guys, are you familiar with this move? Like I'm very curious, like how is like your knowledge in this line? Not everyone. Dennis is not. Guys, it's I noticed it's Karyakin. Oh, okay. Karyakin, Alexeyenko, d4, knight f6, knight d2. Interesting, Winko. But I'm not sure there is any connection to this. Guys, you would be shocked, but I'll tell you that this knight d7 already has 764 games. It's a shocking number. But the point is like huge amount 2020, huge amount. So what is the idea? The idea, black just wants, after bishop g2, to play e5. e5, and then we have this type of position. I don't know, it's basically Pirc reversed, right? But it feels like I don't see. There are games, but it feels like very, very harmless to me. I don't know. Feels very harmless. Of course, c4, e4, there are games, but I wouldn't recommend this, to be honest, right? So what is my idea, right? So the idea to deliver e5, just next move. And the second idea, obviously, when you play c4 right now, black captures the pawn, and there will be knight b6 at some point if necessary, right? So actually this played out like really well here in this position for black. After dc4, if we play it, sometimes it's knight b6, sometimes e5 next move, sometimes e5 next move. If white plays queen a4, I think a6 works really great. It's like maybe black is a little bit better already, like at least computer thinks this way. a6, queen c4, and you know, guys, we have here Slav setup, right? Slav setup, very convenient with the knight on d7, bishop b7, c5, awesome position, right? So, guys, how I'm trying to avoid d4, but that's the time. That's the time to play d4. That's the time to play d4, and I thought it would be very strange. Of course, like it's possible to play maybe knight f6, but everything will be very passive with the knight on d7. Everything will be passive, right? So no, if it would be like just regular moves, nobody would accept this, right? Because, you know, just playing something knight f6 or g6 is passive. But the whole point is to play knight b6. That's the big idea about this. That's the big idea about this. So c4 is stopped, right? At least temporary. And bishop g2, bishop jumps. So it's, you know, guys, like if you know this setup, maybe somebody's playing Slav. So if you get like e6, c6, bishop out, knight d7, it's considered to be super reliable. It's like no problems whatsoever for black. Bishop can be on a5, bishop can be on g4, you know. Now, there are two interesting ideas that I thought to discuss. Actually, I will come with the move knight c3 as my main recommendation. Very strange move, but interesting. We will see what's the idea. Now, castle also, I noticed that there was an interesting game from 2020. Two Russian powerful grandmasters, Andreykin and Alexeyenko. So there was normal play, knight d2, bishop e7, c4, c6. So you see, guys, I mean, that's the idea. That's the idea for black, to get this pawn structure with bishop out, right? Knight on b6, you want to play c5, you're welcome. Knight d7, no problem. No problem, like if white releases the tension here, right? Now, queen b3 was played in the game, and now it was actually very, very important to play queen c7. So that's an improvement, and it's very complicated play. Very complicated play. What's the idea? The idea, if white plays a4 like in the game, there is a possibility to play a5 and knight on b6 protected. It's very complex. It might be okay for black here, but it's an improvement, and it's still very complicated position. So you might check. But also, like, it's very impressive that queen c8 was played, like, very natural. Like, why to put on c7, right? Like, if you don't think about a4, you actually would say, well, queen c7 might run into bishop f4 one day. Let's put it here. But after a4, it's very nice initiative. Very nice initiative in the game. Okay, this is too much. I think like it's like black kind of like wants like to do everything with full comfort, right? Like, but I think knight f6 was possible, and knight h4. So it's the move that secures the bishop, right? But then a5, knight d7, cd5, and it appears that the play opens up, and now somehow if e5, even e4 is possible. Computer says like some crazy lines here, but there is just, it's not surprising, right? Like just break in the center. I would assume something like if you play d4, maybe like knight e5, and then eventually you get the pawn. Then the computer says a6, like it's like somewhat a computer play, but probably weakening, and then knight e5, and then everything opens up, and so it's terrible. It's terrible. In the game, he played cd5, but then that's an improvement. Actually, computer shows that it's very big advantage for white. Very big advantage. What's this move about? This move about just developing the pieces and getting very quickly rook to c1. And queen on c8, very, very much misplaced. Rook c1 is coming, not so clear what to do. Very big advantage for white. Just exactly on time, right? But queen c7, objectively speaking, there is an improvement. Now, knight c3, interesting idea. So we kind of like let's forget about c4 plan. Let's focus on e4 plan and maybe knight h4. That's the idea. That's the idea. So what do we have after knight c3? We have e6 and knight f6, right? Like one knight f6. After e6, knight h4, very important, of course. Like you all Reti players, you should know this idea, right? Knight h4, bishop g4. There is a game, Mikhalevsky against Fedoseev, probably some of the online tournaments, Castle was played. Now, a nice improvement here, a4, that I thought about. a4 would be novelty, so idea a5, probably a5, queen d3, and quick e4. And looks good for white. Looks good. White is better. There are some ideas, potentially even take and get knight on f5 immediately, or maybe first kicking the bishop with h3. So that looks very nice. Now, the main move, in my opinion, instead of e6, knight f6, then we still play knight h4. So basically, knight c3, knight h4, that's the combination, right? We go this way, bishop g6. Yeah, so we have probably, I want to see, like, there are only two games in this position. Or how I forgot about, like, one game, actually Oparin played against Alexeyenko. So I want quickly to show you. So that was e6. Maybe even the best move in this position, because after bishop g6 we just take and e4, and it just looks really nice. Again, black did very well in the game, but it's a game Firuja played. Firuja, another powerful guy who is playing Reti sometimes, quite often actually. Firuja against Fedoseev, and I don't know what he did in the game, but just natural play, castle a4 again, like, well, it's just inserting a4, a5, and then this position, right? This position, but positionally looks like very clear advantage with this, with all this space superiority, right? I mean, white is better here, like significantly. So here after e6, we have, yeah, I think probably that's an interesting question, because what I noticed in the game, after castle, black, what I don't like here, black didn't play this though, but bishop g4 is available, right? Bishop g4, I mean, there was this idea, maybe we can do queen d3 followed by e4, but it's a little bit different, right? Now bishop is alive. Now, there is a feeling that we need to take the bishop, to be honest, like why we played knight h4. I think we should take the bishop, right? We should take the bishop, then maybe to play something like queen d3 with tempo, and maybe trying to get, this is what I thought, like just trying to get e4. Could be bishop h3, could be bishop h3, e4 right away. Of course, we can jump bishop g5. I like white position. I think it's, at least we have some trumps, like as a, like two bishops, right? Bishop pair, and we have a clear plan. So why not to play 5h6? 5h6. So at this moment, I think like, yeah, at first I want to see if, oh, okay, there are like no games here. It's just like literally 3 games. Interesting. Yeah, I'm like, well, what is this opening play? It's like breaking all the rules. No, it's like playing twice with knight and then playing h6. Yeah, well, it makes sense. Vinko, I have to admit that might be some novelty, but you know, guys, we probably we can get e4 here. No doubts. If we want, we deliver e4, and how we do this? Maybe even knight d2 and just e4. Yeah. So what? Maybe as always, I felt like it seems like always kind of like good idea. Just play a4. Probably in what black will react a5, and then knight d2. So I feel it's quite useful, right? And then we get e4, and so. Okay, guys. So at least we have the idea here. At least we have the idea. Like you face knight d7, you know what to do. So that's already a big deal. Now I wanted also to talk about, there is this, like, at some point, I thought, like, that's an interesting idea, maybe to try. So here, I don't know, guys, like, if there is anyone here that has experience in this line and playing something which is not d4, like, let's say, bishop g2. So I felt like the main line, bishop g2, knight c6, and then d4, right? And but basically that's Catalan. You get to the Catalan, but very specific line with c5. Is there anyone who is playing, like, I don't know, there is like c4, but it doesn't feel like there is something serious, like c4, d4, right? Guys, do you play something here besides like d4? Do you have experience in this line, in this position? Okay. I didn't get any answer, but okay, let me show you what I have in mind. So there is bishop g2. First of all, there is like this idea. Okay, king's Indian. Yeah, there is this option, but it's like matter of taste, right? Like if somebody likes to play this, I noticed that, for instance, there are games of Alexander Grishuk. He had like a very few games recently. Yeah, people play, but I just thought it's like not in everyone's taste, right? But I don't know how, like, Reti players, like, is it everyone? But something like this, yeah, it's possible. It's possible. We just, guys, probably there is not so much point to talk about the theory here, right? It's just literally king's Indian, reversed, tempo up for white, to compare with like black position, and you just play a4, knight a3, and so on, right? There are like quite a few games, but mainly like not many players, like mostly, like I noticed Grishuk played a few games, Kramnik played once, but well, okay, in recent years Kramnik played everything, so yeah, so there is this line, right? Now, still, I believe I actually know the players I know, Reti players. They usually do quite okay to transfer to d4 in some lines if it's possible. So here we have d4, and of course, in this position, if it will be actually, maybe I have a little bit different move order, but I wanted to tell you guys about one specific line here, which goes like knight f6. I probably have a. Guys, can you give me 1 second? I want to check whether I have for different move order. I think I have for different move order this position. 1 second. So I have it from knight f6, bishop g2, and c5 here. Yeah, the same, guys. Kind of like the same position, right? So as you know, like in every opening, there are a lot of transpositions. So here, like e6 would transpose to Catalan, right? Like if black plays e6, it will be Catalan. I don't know. Hard to believe that there is something significant besides c4. I noticed like there are like a few games with b3 played by Russian grandmaster. Actually, Oparin played. I haven't checked this. I just kind of like started to recall this, like that I saw somewhere b3, and I was kind of like surprised that there were like pretty good results. Yeah, there is a game Artemiev against Grishuk, couple of games of Oparin. So we need to pay extra attention, right? Like Oparin is playing this, like we know that's the guy to follow, at least from opening perspective. Yeah, so there is this idea to deviate. But what I thought, like for the independent line, there is this funny idea that I thought at some point, maybe it's still good though. So to play Grunfeld reversed, right? Like, but tempo down. The thing, like, I was very skeptical in the beginning because it's not king's Indian. It's not king's Indian. The position is closed. You can afford losing tempo. So here we have c4, bishop e6. So we have Grunfeld, bishop e3 line, right? Bishop e3. Kramnik played queen e1 instead of e4. Well, I mean, it's just the idea of king's Indian. Yeah, you can start knight d2 if you want, like no problem with that, right? But it will be king's Indian. You can start probably any move like you have in king's Indian, like black is not playing e5 immediately, knight d7 or knight a6, it's possible. Especially you are tempo up, so you can afford any move, right? But yeah, in this position, I thought it's like very challenging actually approach, because black gained the center, and if you are not challenging properly, then what to do here, right? Now there is this line, queen a4. It's very, very much resembles Grunfeld, but definitely it's tempo up. It's tempo up, right? Queen a4, queen d7, knight c3. So there is this line, knight c3, tension. I think it's rook c8 has to be played. The idea that if you play, I think if you play bishop e7, then the pressure on the center becomes significant here with the pawn on d5. And now why rook c8 is played? Now after rook c8, black is ready to play d4. So if you want to increase the tension with rook d1 or bishop d5, there is d4. Yeah. So now there is this endgame. And rook d1, of course. It looks really bad in the beginning, but somehow there is this idea bishop c5. There is idea bishop c5 with the point that if we take on d5, there is some compensation. Actually, black is doing like really, really well. So the idea goes this way, like knight d5, bishop d5, bishop d5, rook d5, and king e6. And I guess next move, rook d8, right? Rook is moving, rook d8. Like there are a lot of draws. It's just like equal. It just equalizes. Rook d8, and the point, of course, that after bishop d2, bishop d4 is coming, and rook c2. So black just in time to equalize. So that's how tricky black holds this position. Now, knight d5 is nothing. There is nothing to play for. After that, it's just like very convenient equality. So I found this game, knight a4. Knight a4 played by Grandelius in 2020. But by the way, one, like I mentioned, probably those two leading players that I mentioned a lot of times, Grandelius and Oparin, right? But it's not accidentally. I actually know that they're very good players in terms of theoretical knowledge and also some consistency. Bishop e7, bishop g5. So pressure, like d4, always e3. Surprisingly, it's not over. Because when I saw this position, I felt like, well, okay, so that's very bad. That's very bad for black. King on d7. But there is this move. It's really funny. There is this move. And now there is this game like h4. I think at least this line should be played. There is bishop g5 played in his game, and it was advantage, I think, pawn structure wise. Now another game, correspondence. Black reacted precisely d4, and then bishop d2, knight h6. Now it still feels that white is better here, in my opinion. And I checked the game. It's like many precise moves that actually it's very hard to find in real game. I mean, we already like 17 moves, right? So it's and of course, as you know, like in correspondence games, they can play very, very precise with computers, with assistance of computers. So just that it's another decent line for black in general, objectively speaking. Maybe something that I missed. I wanted to show you this line very much, but maybe we have. Oh yeah, so here after e6 b3, but this is like d4 cd4, right? So here we have no alternative unless we just decide let's play King's Indian reverse, right? Guys, I think that's what we covered for today. I know d5 d5 systems, c6, bishop f5, bishop g4. That will be the focus for tomorrow lectures. So you will get all necessary like preparation there. So I was like mainly like thinking about covering like g6, which was very important in my opinion, because I heard from like many Reti players that, well, g6 just bothers me. I just transpose to d4, nothing to do, right? Now knight d7, very fashionable, and plus this line. So this is what we covered for 90 minutes. Maybe we were unable to cover like more lines, but at least in these lines, guys, hopefully you have now good preparation. So now if you want, guys, if you have any questions, maybe let's do 5 minutes for the questions, if you have any, and we can wrap up this lecture today. So it seems like no questions. Everything was clear. Yeah, well, opening advantage is one. Also, like I was trying, like, let's say, to see playable positions, right? I mean, guys, after so many years working on the high level, I know that objectively speaking, in all mainstream lines, it's equality. Like just the question when. So this is my approach. Some people believe that it's slightly better for white, right? Like everywhere. But after, you know, working with these like elite players, I feel like if we take like some big lines, some mainstream Queen's Gambit decline, Slav, Nimzo, it's with some work, black should always equalize. That's my approach. So they always talked about positions that are playable and challenging as well, right? Not like just playable position, but it's still equal. And so here, like when I see at least some equal position, like, but it's very playable, so we go for this, right? Yeah, you can ask any question. So I see question knight f3 g6, guys, but this like it can be not Reti, right? It's not Reti, so that was not the topic of my line. Of course, like knight f3, like we are talking only about d5, but there is c5, there is knight f6 g6, but that's not Reti, right? Of course, those who play knight f3, they okay. We are talking about knight f3, and those who play knight f3, you have to be ready for c5, you have to be ready for d5, you have to be ready for knight f6 g6 and all other like small moves, right? Like I don't know, g6 b6, whatever. So but Reti specifically, okay, so here is like very long question. I want to see knight f3 d5 c4 d4. Okay, so well, guys, okay, it's actually I would like to mention that was an interesting question. It's very long, probably I'm missing something, guys. We are talking about g3. There is c4, right? Some players go for this move order, but here d4. I don't know. There are ideas, I know, but I kind of like think like it's pretty good for black. This d4 line is pretty good for the black. And what do you think? Which skills or style must have Reti player? Well, it's mostly like positional skills, right? After all, let's put it like objectively, right? It's not as challenging as e4, d4. You're probably not getting very open positions, but I'm actually not like the guy who is like, well, you're sharp, you're active player, you should go e4, you should castle queenside. I'm like, you want to play a little bit more positional in the opening? Like I was very aggressive player. I played Catalan. I think like you do your aggressive choices later in the middle game. So that's my approach, right? I think like different grandmasters believe in different like, you know, concepts, but I'm like, well, I start solid, like g3, bishop, g2. And by the way, let's say I played Catalan, but it can turn also very aggressive if, let's say, black accepts the pawn on c4, right? There are some super sharp lines, right? 2 pawns down, 3 pawns down. I'm pretty sure Reti, we saw also very sharp lines, right? Like, but it's mainly understanding like all these ideas with the fianchetto bishop, like what exactly what exactly like you need to do, which break, e4, c4, like build your repertoire, because there are like a lot of questions whether you want to play Queen's Indian, King's Indian at some point. Now, for instance, we talk about c4, but I'm pretty much sure that some players would be okay with King's Indian attack, right? Just playing d3, knight d2. So we didn't talk like there is this big line, one of the mainstream lines, d5, knight f6, e6, bishop e7, right? What do you do there? Like some players transfer to Catalan, some players play c4, b3, like that's kind of like independent Reti line, I would say. Some players go for King's Indian attack, right? Like d3, knight d2, e4. So skills like just good opening knowledge, at least not to get worse. No, I'm not this, but like, if you're not familiar with nuances, you might allow like black to get full control in the center. So you need to know the ideas well, right? So that's my point. I'm not like diminish like Réti opening or something, but you have to know when you undermine and everything, right? Yeah, I think like I'm not sure like I'm following this question from Cool Carney, like c5, b6. It's probably you asked something before, but I missed. Now c5, b5, a6, b6, c5, b5, a6, b6. How to face black f5, e4 plan? Oh, okay. So that's the question. If you noticed, we played so quickly for our e3 idea that he had no time for this. So we were very quick with the free developing our play, right? So black had a problem to consolidate. So you shouldn't worry about this. But that's the problem, like in Reti. So that's exactly the position that shows how you should understand like the timing, right? You need like really quick e3. You cannot just shuffle pieces and then black consolidates and gets black has pawn on d4, e5, f5. That cannot happen, right? So you need to be fast. Okay, guys, I think we are good for today. I hope you enjoyed. And the most important, you can benefit from my ideas and score points. That's always the goal, right? So looking forward to see you once again, and good luck with your Reti games.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Boris. Today you managed to cover some of the most interesting and topical lines, and you provided very interesting, fresh ideas. Thank you very much.
I feel like d5, c6, you definitely other grandmaster will talk a lot about these positions, right?
Yes, Grandmaster Arnaudov will cover this topic. Also, we will cover double fianchetto positions, also Reti Catalan type of positions. So many positions will be covered, and what you covered is missing in the other lectures.
Excellent. I'm glad it was like a good fit for other lectures.
Great. Yeah, it was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grigor.
Okay, see you.
Have a nice evening, most of you guys. Bye-bye.
Have a nice evening.